You already made this video. This is a remake, remember? Okay, so explain the history of Godzilla. It all started back in 1945 when America did atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. This was in Japan. A decade after, in 1954, they decided to respond by making a movie about a giant monster called Godzilla. Since it was made in Japan, that's what his original name was. Us Americans then decided for Godzilla until a couple of years after his movie was released in America. Godzilla, the King of Monsters, which was the title we gave Godzilla. Us Americans. The 1954 Godzilla was straight up a villain. He was an evil giant being who destroys stuff. Is there any other way in this movie where he doesn't feel like destroying stuff? In the next movie, 1955's Godzilla Reigns Again, Godzilla returns, into another monster called Anguirus. Sorry, Anguirus? Which was surprisingly in America called into Gigantus, the fire monsters. This is what? It's Godzilla, not Gigantus. And for some reason, the American version, both monsters had the same exact roars, which sounds kind of weird. This Godzilla from that film is not the same as the original. The original was, no longer alive when he was affected by the Oxygen Destroyer. That Godzilla, that's how you can prove that this Godzilla is not the same as the Godzilla from the original movie. This Godzilla would be buried in ice at the end of the film, but bust free by 1962's King Kong vs. Godzilla, where he faced against the giant ape himself. The movie ends with them both tumbling to the ocean. It turned out to be a tie between two monsters. Yeah, there was this myth that Godzilla won in one version and King Kong won in another version. It turned out to be a complete myth. This Godzilla again returned in Mothra vs. Godzilla in 1964. Where, again, he faced against another giant monster called, this time, Mothra. 1964's Ghidorah the Freedom Monster version where he has an arch rival called King Ghidorah, or Ghidorah as they like to call in Japan. This follows up by 1965 Invasion of Astro Monster, 1966, Adora Emperor Horror of the Deep, or Godzilla vs. the Sea Monster. 1967, Son of Godzilla, where Godzilla has an annoying, ugly looking son. 1968's Destroy Monsters, which is supposed to be the final Godzilla film. 1969's Godzilla's Revenge, where... Wait, you're fine. Oh. 1969's Godzilla's Revenge, where he deals with bullying. 1971's or Godzilla vs. Ghidorah, where he's facing against a pollution monster. 1972's Godzilla vs. Gigan, where somehow he can talk. You know, hey, I'm Godzilla. That's why. 1973's Godzilla vs. Megalon, where he teams up with this giant robot thing called the Jaguar that was designed by an actual kid, not joking. Oh, and it's where he's famous for that flying kick. 1974's Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, where he faced against a mechanical version of himself. And then 1975's Terror of Mechagodzilla, which is his final appearance in the last movie, which is called The Show Era. After that, it took near a decade for the company Toho to think of another Godzilla film. Luckily, they did with 1984's The Return of Godzilla, which is the first movie that knows any other Godzilla film except the original. And this time, it's a completely different Godzilla. See, this Godzilla is not the original either. They explain that many films later. That's the reason why this is not the same Godzilla as the original film is because the other Godzilla long ago had no longer been alive by the Oxygen Destroyer. Yep. So, completely different Godzilla. This Godzilla would then be just like the original Godzilla started to be a actual villain and started to terrorize Japan once again. This Godzilla appeared in 1989's Godzilla vs. Biollante, where he fights against a plant like monster. 1991's Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, where he faced against once again against King Ghidorah. This version of King Ghidorah comes Mecha King Ghidorah. 1919, he returned in 1982's Godzilla vs. Mothra Battle for Earth, where he once again faced against Mothra, but this time a character called Batra is involved. 1993's Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2, 1994's Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla, where he faced against a space version of himself. 1995's Godzilla vs. Destroyer, where he's seen as his latest form of burning Godzilla. Unfortunately, this is the last time this version of Godzilla ever appears. Because he unfortunately melts away while his son, Godzilla Jr., is set out to be the new Godzilla. That didn't happen since 1998. America decided to make their own Godzilla movie. And this is another different version of Godzilla. Well, the reason why, instead of being a mutated dinosaur by radiation, this one still is affected by a nuclear bomb. But this time, it's a mutated iguana. You can definitely tell it's supposed to be a mutated iguana. However, since the Godzilla film, since it was so disliked, deservedly so, that this version of Godzilla was called Zilla instead. And was killed by an actual version of Godzilla. Yes, that actually happened. We will get to that. 1999, so Toho released another Godzilla movie, Godzilla 2000, annoying any other film except for the original. It's a completely different version of Godzilla once again. Then the second reboot happens with 2000's Godzilla vs. Megaguirus. This Godzilla is the original Godzilla, but in a what-if scenario. Like, what if the oxygen destroyer wasn't involved to stop this Godzilla? 2001's Godzilla GMK is another reboot, only being connected to the original. This time it's a completely different version of Godzilla. This time, this version of Godzilla is mixed between these souls of the victims of Japanese World War II soldiers. I am not kidding. That's what this version of Godzilla is. 2002's Godzilla against Mechagodzilla is another reboot, but this time connected to all different types of kaiju movies, not just the original Godzilla film. Again, this is it introduced another different version of Godzilla. This time facing against another Mechagodzilla, this time Q, which is actually the original Godzilla, but brought back to life as a machine. Yes, you didn't know, the movie explains that they took the bones of the original Godzilla and used it to make this Mechagodzilla called Kiryu. And then this Godzilla returns in 2003's Godzilla Tokyo SOS. 2004's Godzilla Final Wars. It's again a completely different version of Godzilla. This Godzilla faces against other different monsters, and his movie isn't connected to any other previous Godzilla movie. Yeah, this Godzilla is the only one of his universe. This Godzilla faces against, Gigan, Mothra, Monster X, and actually kills off the first American Godzilla. Yes, Zilla gets killed off by this Godzilla. Boom! 2014 adds another Americanized Godzilla movie, this time with the actual Godzilla. But this is another completely different version of Godzilla. Because this one is a sort of an anti-hero. Doesn't take form of a fully hero or villain. He's more of an anti-hero role. This Godzilla is part of what is called the Monsterverse, what we get to its other films a bit later. Now 2016 introduced Shin Godzilla. Again, another different version of Godzilla. How many versions does he have? Just 2017's Godzilla Planet of the Monsters introduced two different versions, two Godzillas. Godzilla Philius and Godzilla Earth. Which this version that Godzilla continues on into the rest of the anime, to these Godzilla movies, which is called the Anime Trilogy. 2018's Godzilla City After Battle and 2018's Godzilla Planet Eater. Meanwhile, we got the Monsterverse Godzilla continuing on appearing in the next couple of films. 2019's Godzilla King of Monsters and 2020's Godzilla vs. Kong. Where Mechagodzilla appears at the very end, near the end of the movie, at the final battle. And then the next movie Toho made was 2023's Godzilla Minus One, which is a different version of Godzilla again, but this one is a precursor to the original. That's right, Godzilla Minus One is the prequel to the original film. Again, but then we got the Monsterverse Godzilla team up with King Kong and the newer Godzilla movie 2020, this year's Godzilla x Kong, The New Empire. Godzilla also appeared in cartoon shows, and had tons of video games. So, let me get this straight of the different movie Godzillas. Actually, that must be saved for another video. Because I'm wondering why I keep on mentioning another version of Godzilla. Well, each different movie Godzillas have their own continuity, or the same continuity, but in different types of movies. That's why whenever Godzilla shows up, he has different types of roles. I am Matt the Comic Guy. See you next time. Bye.